Before we get too far into it, you should follow me on Twitch because I plan to be streaming all of the Halo games back to back in a giant marathon while I basically record footage. My next project is going to be about the Halo games, so I have to get a bunch of film, and I don't want to just steal everybody's film, so I'm going to record myself playing the game, basically. You should follow me on Twitch. Links down below. Or links right there. Links everywhere. The good news is I figured out that I can screenshot stuff, so I can actually use some screenshots instead of just, talking to you and letting you see my face this whole time, so that's a plus. So Halo Episode 4 is called Homecoming. Obviously, John is going home. Finally. We've been waiting, right? There's another flashback. The Spartans are children. They're going through their training camp. They're running or whatever. And there is a part here that's actually, this is actually canon accurate, I guess you could say. In the first book, the Spartan children are issued their uniforms, which are basically jumpsuits with their number and name printed on the front. So this scene where they're running or whatever is pretty accurate, and they also kind of introduce this character named Mendez, who is the one that trained all the Spartan 2s from when they were like super small children. He's a badass and quite possibly one of the coolest characters in the entire verse, so if they actually made use of him, that'd be great. Now in this flashback, John apparently wants to go home and keeps trying to run away. This is just being petty, but John really doesn't want to run away. He pretty much accepts his life fully in the UNSC as a Spartan. He loves it, right? Halsey is kind of weird talking to little John here, but okay, whatever. The one thing that I need to point out in this scene is John's complaining that he wants to go home and that this wasn't always his home, and Holly's telling him it is his home. John mentions a character named Jai and says that Jai is the one that told him otherwise, that this isn't his real home. And this, again, is kind of canon accurate to an extent, okay? Because Jai is a character in the Cole Protocol series. Specifically, Jai's in Grey Team. Grey Team of Spartans in the Cole Protocol series was essentially formed basically just because these 3 Spartan kids stole helicopters, ran away, and constantly didn't want to be in the... They were basically experts at espionage, which was the whole purpose of their group. So Jai questioning everything kind of makes sense in a canon character sense, but you also got to remember the character he just kept running away, okay? He wasn't brainwashed or anything. He just kept running away. That's what made the character. Then Halsey is basically saying that John is acting un-Spartan-like. And then Halsey and Igor, her little assistant, talk about how they're trying to find the intelligence beyond the intelligence. They want to find the next step, right? They want to see what the universe has to offer, some very vague shit like that. And Halsey at this point actually mentions she doesn't know what makes John special. And this is just, again, I feel like Halsey is the most absurd character in this whole series because this is just not how Halsey would ever behave. Okay, Halsey knows what makes John special, and it's literally, again, his luck. He's lucky. That is what makes John special. What makes John special is nothing, because there's nothing special about him other than the fact that he's lucky. Cortana is probably still, I know that Cortana's core character is messed up and she like really wants to take over John's brain, but she's just such a funny fucking character. I just love it, Then we go back to Quan, and I just don't care about the Madrigal storyline in this series. I really don't. Every time Madrigal comes up, I think of that Encanto song, right? Welcome to family, Madrigal. That's all that I think of, but I just don't care about Quan. I don't care about her struggles. I don't care about any of it. This is not a character I'm invested in, and they're just kind of forcing me to be invested in her. But there's, again, a little bit of canon thrown in here, or I guess you could call it canon, but also I call it a weak canon. Soren is actually a character from the books, and this is something I totally spaced on before. I just didn't realize that this was the same character, because in the books, the character is described as having like this gross, horrific mutation, whereas in the adaptation, he's just got like a little messed up arm, right? In the books, he was completely messed up, and yeah, he was actually in the very first, or one of the very first stories in the book Halo Evolutions. I lost my quarter. Yeah, I use quarters as bookmarks. Fuck you. He was it was one of the first stories in this book, and probably one of my least favorite stories. It was not good, but they do mention how he kills his father, which in the book he did that. It's just like a 50-page story, I think. But the thing that you want to take away from this is who wrote it, right? B.K. Everson, I think, is his name. He wrote this book, and it's the only Halo book the only Halo story he's ever written. He has very small Halo story repertoire. It's one story, and but he has a history of writing games for books and stuff like that. And I actually, BK Everson wrote all the Dead Space series books based on the video games. And for the record, I actually really like these books. These books are awesome. In it, they describe the marker as just this uncaring, anomalous thing that just doesn't give a shit about anything other than completing its goal. And I love that. But in this story, right, in the Halo Evolution story, BK Everson basically makes Soren just this misunderstood guy, and Halsey is way too nice, which is weird, right? Halsey is too nice in the story, but she is too nice, and she basically lets him escape, right? In the adaptation, it's mentioned that Soren had to run for like 3 weeks or something like that. But in the story, she almost immediately tells everybody to leave him alone because he's not a threat, right? He's not a threat is her main point. And then in this adaptation, you have Halsey clearly willing to kill anybody that she considers a threat. Whatever. The point that I wanted to make is that, yeah, Soren is actually a canon character. But it seems like, again, they took inspiration so far from what I've seen, like two, 3 books. So I don't understand why they decided to deviate from the canon so far when there's plenty of developed characters in here that they are taking the characters and their like motivations and just kind of swapping them around. It's just weird. Okay, then Kai, one of the current Spartans, the one that was very good at memorizing stuff, took out her emotion inhibitor chip or whatever, just like I said she would in the last video. I can predict these kind of things because it's very straightforward. It's not that hard to guess what's going to happen next. So they arrive at Eridanus 2 and drive a pretty cool warthog. John does this thing throughout this entire episode that I fucking hate so much. He literally just, he has his helmet off in the spaceship, he puts his helmet on, and then he drives the warthog for like 10 to 15 seconds and then immediately takes his helmet off again. It's just like, if you're just gonna have John always have his helmet off, which, by the way, pretty much this entire episode he doesn't have his helmet on, and he just, why even have him wear the armor at all? Why even have him be a Spartan? You could just make this a different character. Apparently John's parents led the colony on Eridanus 2, and this is something I honestly don't know whether it's canon or not, because I don't think there's not much known about John's past other than the fact that he was abducted as a child, replaced with a clone. The clone died, and that's pretty much the end of it, because we don't need to know what John's past was. It really just doesn't matter too much. We go back into Madrigal, and again, this is the story, this is the plot line that I just don't care about. I don't care about this dictator. I don't care about these people. The bad guy, again, who is like the 1984 dictator, it just walks playing through the street, 2 cars instantly stop for him, and he like uses the force or some shit. I don't know. It's a very weird scene. I just don't, him and his crew are all dressed in black, and it's like, they're obviously the bad guys. They're obviously imposing like martial law, and it's, who cares? Kwan needs to find her dad's generals because her dad started the revolution, as we know, and he was the leader of the revolution. He basically ruled that whole planet, despite the fact that he only had like 120 people in that camp and like 1 machine gun. He was cutting edge in the revolution, right? He was taking it by fucking, he was doing shit, okay? It didn't seem like he was in the beginning, but he was doing shit. There's a memorial for her father, and she needs to go to it. Again, I just don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Kai, who is the Spartan that took out her emotional thing, is already starting to feel stuff. And as she's starting to feel stuff, she immediately dyes her hair, right? She has this gun cleaner, or I'm assuming it's gun cleaning lubricant, right? And she just dyes her hair. Individuality, I guess. Fuck it, right? Then Miranda Keyes is asking the Spartans to touch the thing that John touched to see if there's a reaction, which I don't know why they didn't do this in the first place, and I'm pretty sure they did, but we're back to square one, I guess. Basically, Kai, this is the moment where Kai is showing that she is feeling more, because as opposed to her robotic and stoic other 2 Spartans, she is reacting with curiosity and, you know, emotion and concern and joy and stuff like that, right? She's reacting like an actual person. John, back on Eridanus 2, is digging and finds some drawings that his dad had buried because he didn't want him to keep drawing this artifact thing for whatever reason. He didn't indulge his son's curiosity at all. You know, why are you drawing this strange rock? Can you show me where it is? No. He's just gonna bury it in a fucking box somewhere, because that's what parents do, all right? Again, Madrigal, I'm I just don't. I just don't pay attention during the Madrigal parts because it doesn't fucking register with me at all. Kai needs to touch the artifact, and again, Kai makes a pretty good reference to the books. This is again a reference to the books. Halo Evolutions, all right, another reference to this book, right? They're really pulling from quite a few sources here. But Kai references at one point that they study Sun Tzu in the Art of War, and they also study Preston Cole. Sun Tzu is actually referenced in the books. That that's something that the Spartans actually did study. They also studied how wolves attack elk or some shit like that. But what Kai is referencing here is actually a story from Halo Evolutions called The Impossible Life and Possible Death of Preston Cole. And this story was written by Eric Newland, who, believe it or not, is the guy that wrote the first Halo books. So the story of Preston Cole is probably one of the best stories, I think, in the whole Halo series, because it just tells the story of a guy who's really fucking good at math, really good at strategy. He developed a new way to travel slip space. He attacked the Covenant, all this shit, and eventually he's basically fighting the rebels most of the time. He falls in love with one of them, dies, and then, he joins the rebellion side, he dies, or he goes on vacation forever with his love. They're referencing the books, and it feels like they might just be throwing it out there as like a crumb, but you have so much potential, right? Preston Cole would be such a good character, and it would fit in this story specifically because he struggled with morality and whether or not what the UNSC was doing was right. And he fits in the story. Why don't you just put him in the fucking story? But yeah, again, that was a pretty good reference to the canon. Cortana puts up a hologram of John's past house in memory so that he can have an excuse to put on his helmet again. Halsey is obviously afraid that John is going to remember something, which at this point I'm obviously going to guess is him remembering his family being killed or something like that, or him being taken in the middle of the night. He's going to remember something fucked up, and it's going to backfire. The dog is really cute. I like the dog. It looks like maybe a white German Shepherd or something like that. I don't know, but the dog is cute as shit, so I like dogs. It's revealed that John actually touched the artifact as a kid, which I'm positive most people could have guessed. And then John hears a coin flip in one of his memories. This is a memory specifically from the canon. This is John meeting Dr. Halsey for the first time. And there's a few slight differences between how the scene is portrayed in the television series and how the scene is portrayed in literally the first fucking book. Okay, it's literally like one of the first scenes. It's when she goes to meet John. She specifically goes to meet John for some reason. It's just a specimen she wanted to personally examine to see if they were fit for the program. And she sees John, and he's on a hill, and he's a head taller than all the other kids, and he's basically throwing them around like they're fucking marionettes or something. She challenges John with a coin, right? The coin has an eagle with talons or whatever, and then whatever the fuck else on the other. John wants to keep the coin, so they play the game. If he wins, he gets to keep the coin. At one point, she's just flipping the coin. He has to call it in the air and what it is, blah blah blah. John calls them pretty accurately, and the whole point is that she was trying to test his reflexes to see if he would be able to see what side the coin was going to be on when it landed. And that's him reacting to it and grabbing it is basically to determine his hand-eye coordination or some shit. Basically, John's reflexes are so good that he's able to catch it over and over and over again and predict the exact outcome over and over again. He wins it. He's super happy. Halsey basically decides he's one of the ones they're going to take. And when John is eventually taken, he breaks like 3 fingers and almost removes somebody's eye because they try to take the coin from it. And these are like ODST guards or whatever. He fucks them up because they take the coin from him. Eventually, he gets the coin back after he is risen to the rank of leader of the Spartans or whatever. So that was a good bit, but it's a little different in the TV show. In the TV show, Halsey has snuck into his house somehow and has decided to play the game with him. And John is okay with playing a game with a stranger in his house to win a coin. There's a pretty good scene that comes up, right? Kai, the emotion experienced dyed hair girl, is basically fucking around with it. There's dead aliens on this examining field because Miranda Keyes is examining the aliens, artifacts, and shit like that. She's trying to, I guess, solve the fucking crisis. And Kai says that, the needler is her favorite weapon, and then she mentions a word that they speak every time they use it because that's the Covenant word for needler. And then the other Spartans basically confirm that this is what the Covenant call it. That's what the actual name of it is. And Kai basically says, it could either mean needler or it could mean shit, please don't kill me. And then the other Spartan goes, that's correct. And I just thought this scene was really funny. It's some deadpan humor. But here's the thing, Miranda Keyes then discovers that Spartans, having been in contact with the Covenant so much, more than likely know a lot about their language. And using that, she tries to decode the Covenant transmission that they intersected. The UNSC has smart AI. They have all these resources dedicated to deciphering the Covenant's language. You're not going to tell me that these 3 Spartans are the ones that are able to completely decode a Covenant message just because one of them now experiences emotions and feels like talking about this stuff. And because Miranda never once asked the Spartans if they knew any of this language, that's the reason that humanity's advancement has stopped so much. Madrigal again, and now they need to find Quan's rich aunt because money solves all their problems or some shit. Then there's just the shot of the evil 1984 guy, and he's in the middle of this pool, and this pool has like a single fucking chair in the center of it, and it's just fucking weird, right? And it's just a fucking single chair. And he's talking to this chick called Franco. And Franco is apparently just a fucking badass assassin, right? She's just one of the best assassins in the world. I actually don't know if this character is canon or not, but there's one thing that I can tell you about any of the new books that have come out recently. The main character in every single one of the new books, the new Halo books, is a chick. So it's plausible. I just haven't looked into it, and I don't really remember or care to remember things that kind of don't interest me. So then Quan eventually stumbles upon her aunt, though her aunt like has this ambush scene where all of her goons attack them like and try to beat them up, and then immediately calls it off. Miranda has learned a bunch of language from all the Spartans, and then, you know, she trauma dumps Halsey not liking her, even though it was, you know, technically the other way around in the canon, but it doesn't matter. Then Kai explains how all the Spartan kids were given animals, and they were, you know, given the animals and forced into survival scenarios, and if one of the teams loses the survival scenario, their animals get killed. So this is also, again, referencing something from the very first book. In the first book, John and the Spartans, very early on in their training, are all pretty much forced to go into the forest and find a bunch of... They all have been given grid squares for a map. They have to find each other and then plot their way back to the extraction point and then escape. And that's a theme that happens a lot in the Halo books, is they're dropped off into this place, forced to escape or kill an enemy, and then left. And this is one of the instances where John shows that he's actually meant to be a leader, and this is the thing that makes Halsey make him a leader. Disregards orders specifically to ensure that all of his Spartans make it home, because there was a rule that the last Spartan to reach the extraction point has to stay out in the wilderness and hike the entire way back to the camp. After he basically beat up a bunch of soldiers and took their ship, he made sure that he was the last one on the ship, so that technically he would be the one that would be punished. This is kind of like the major turning point for John, is that he's the leader of the Spartans. But my point is, this is them kind of demonizing the UNSC, because all of their training exercises were usually affected directly by their lack of teamwork or themselves, right? If they didn't succeed, they wouldn't eat or something like that, okay? Or if they didn't succeed as a team, they would all lose. It was team building. In this version, they're saying that if you don't beat the other team, I'm gonna kill your puppy. And I don't understand how that's supposed to build camaraderie when you would directly blame the people that won for your dog dying. Anyway, it's a very confusing thing, but that is a training thing that does happen in the Halo books. It's just not nearly that fucked up. Halsey is concerned about John's visions, and it's just like, if you were concerned about his visions, why are you doing what you're doing right now? It just doesn't make sense. And then we go back to Madrigal, and it's strongly implied by Quan's aunt that the Haas, who is their family, they have some reason for being there. They're the chosen ones, which I obviously think, again, like I said before, is the fact that Quan is probably going to be one of the chosen or blessed that can touch the artifacts and activate them. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Meanwhile, while this conversation is happening, there's just flashes of Franco just murdering all of the aunt's goons. Just like they're attacking her with their bare fists, and she has a sword, and she's just killing all of them. And it's just really weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's like they're trying to make it seem badass and stealthy, but it's literally just like slicing people up with a sword in public. Franco bursts in. She's an assassin, and she kills Quan's aunt in front of her. Franco is just like this weird fucking ninja and gets shot in the shoulder by a revolver and just kind of bounces off the walls and lands and runs away, and you're just like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? So John is remembering his memories, and Halsey is surprised that John is remembering his memories, despite him specifically saying that he was remembering his memories, and then he immediately comes out of nowhere and says, I remember. It's like one of the first things she said, right, was that John is beginning to, he's recovering his memories, and now she's surprised that he's remembering shit. Miranda is deciphering the encryption now, thanks to the help of the Spartans knowing 7 words of Covenant dialect. Kai and Miranda seem to be getting pretty comfy. Something that modern media has forced me to believe is that 2 women can't just, like, be friends and interact in a friendly way without there being some form of perceived romantic interest, because the way they look at each other isn't like, you know, that's not how you look at a friend, you know what I mean? That's like how you look at someone you're interested in. I still think Kai as a character is pretty interesting now that she's experiencing emotions again, even though that's fucking a dumb concept in the beginning about Spartans, but it is refreshing to see an actual personality come out once in a while. Kai is just one of the best language translators on the planet, I guess. She's better than any of their AI just because she remembers things. I don't know. Her memory game paid off. And then the story finals up with Miranda going on this rant about Halsey always wanting to achieve perfection and doesn't like it when things that she makes deviates from what she intends. So glitches need to be corrected. Because she's basically implying that Halsey is going to kill John because he's not performing the way she intended. And that's the end of the episode. Clearly there is I don't know if they're just being fed like very snippets of information, right? I don't know if they're just having the keywords filled in for them with a lot of this lore stuff, but there's definitely a trace of an actual, like, a very little bit of knowledge of, like, at least 3 Halo books, right? 3 of them. It's very possible that they could have just made this into something good, right? It would not be that far-fetched, but I don't know why they decided to deviate these characters so much. Something else is, I know Kai dyed her hair, and I'm pretty sure in the Fall of Reach, the very first book, Kelly has her hair dyed. And I think it's a red strip. I'm gonna look. Yeah, I found it. Page 40, the Halo Fall of Reach. John looked to his right. A boy with sandy hair, green eyes, and darkly tanned skin gave him a weary smile. Stenciled on his sweat top was Samuel 034. In a row beyond Samuel was a girl. She was taller than John and skinny with a long mane of hair dyed blue. Kelly 087. So that is the record. But this is when they were first abducted. This is literally their first day on the job. And I'm pretty sure after that they all buzzed their hair or some shit like that. But anyway, the whole point is, it's not like a fucking weird woke thing. But I have a feeling it's going to turn into that. But for right now, it's literally just... Spartans did have dyed hair. So I think the whole Madrigal plot, all of it, every single part of the Madrigal plot, just needs to be removed. I don't think anybody cares about Quan's struggle. I don't think anything about Quan is interesting or worth exploring. I don't care about Madrigal. I don't care that this guy has taken over the planet, and the UNSC said that they would help protect him against the Covenant, even though on the planet when Kwan's dad literally ruled it like 2 days ago. People didn't even believe the Covenant existed. So, like, what the fuck? I don't know. And there's no action. There's the part of Franco killing people. That's pretty much all you get. You get Soren being Soren sometimes, but there's no Spartan, there's no Covenant fighting, there's nothing really real going on. I don't know. I'm just not it's hard to criticize something that's just not good. It's just not good. Even if you deviate from the canon significantly, you should still be able to make a decent story, right? Even shitty things like the Fahrenheit 451 adaptation for the movie, it was watchable, but it was bad. But it was watchable, right? And then you have the Jurassic Park adaptation, watchable, but it wasn't accurate, right? And then you have fucking Rambo, watchable, everybody loves it, not accurate. I just don't. It's just not good.